When the bell over the cafe door rings, I already know it's her. There's a way she moves, like she's not rushing anywhere, but she's also never idle. Ms. Kondo. My mother's best friend since before I could talk. I keep my eyes on the register screen longer than I need to. I don't want her to think I've been waiting. She orders the same thing every Thursday: black coffee, 1 sugar packet she never uses. She always folds the paper wrapper in half, creasing it 3 times before sliding it under her cup. I used to think it was just something she did when she was nervous, but she does it every time. Maybe that's the point. To keep her hands busy when her thoughts aren't. Rough morning, she asks, glancing at the line behind her. Nothing rough about it, I say, tapping her total into the screen. You're early though. I had papers to grade, she says, shrugging lightly. Needed a place quieter than my kitchen. She doesn't say that my mother's been calling her, but I know she has. I saw Mom's name flash on my phone last night, 3 times. Before I turned it face down on the counter, I didn't answer. The machine hisses. I pour her coffee, hand it over without looking at her, but her fingers brush mine when she takes the cup. Just a second too long. I feel it, that soft, accidental pause neither of us acknowledges. You've been working a lot lately, she says. I shrug, wiping the counter that's already clean. It's easier than thinking. She smiles. That faint, tired kind of smile that seems like she understands too well. I know the feeling, she says. The cafe is nearly empty by the time her grading stack is halfway done. She sits near the window, sunlight climbing up her sleeve. Sometimes she hums, low, almost like she's trying not to. I refill her cup without asking. You're going to spoil me, she says when I do. Maybe you're already spoiled, I say before I can stop myself. Her eyes flick up, amused, surprised. Then she looks down at her papers again, but there's the faintest trace of a smile that wasn't there before. We talk about small things. The weather. The song playing too quietly on the speakers. A book I saw her carrying last week. She remembers I said I wanted to read it. You'd like the ending, she says. It's not happy, but it feels honest. Honest. That word hangs between us longer than it should. I don't know what to call the thing that happens when she's around. It's not attraction, not exactly. It's something quieter, like being seen without trying. She doesn't ask what's wrong, she just sits in the same air until it feels lighter. When she leaves, she places a folded note under her empty cup. Not a tip. She knows I can't accept those. Just a receipt torn in half with a few words written in the corner. Your mom came by last night. She said she's worried. Call her. The paper smells faintly of coffee and her perfume. The same one I remember from my mother's dinner parties years ago. I slip the note into my pocket, but I don't call. At closing time, I'm wiping tables when my phone buzzes. Unknown number. I don't answer until the message appears. She's here. With your brother. I look out the cafe window, and there they are. My mother, already walking toward the door, my brother dragging his feet behind her. And just past them, half turned from the corner, I see Ms. Kondo watching too. They stayed for 3 days. 3 days of slammed doors, half-spoken accusations, and my brother asking where I kept the good Wi-Fi. By the second night, I'd stopped pretending to listen. When Mom finally left, she didn't hug me. Just said, "You think you're better than the rest of us now?" and walked out. My brother didn't even look up from his phone. The apartment was quiet again. The kind of quiet that hums. I found myself outside before realizing where I was going. The cafe was dark, chairs stacked, but the light in the back office was still on. Ms. Kondo's car sat under the street lamp, windows fogged slightly. I almost turned around, but then the door opened. "You shouldn't be out this late," she said, stepping out, sweater sleeves pushed up, hair pinned loosely. "Everything all right?" I nodded even though it wasn't. She didn't ask again. Just locked the door behind her and gestured toward the bench outside. "Sit." I made tea. It's terrible but warm. We sat there, side by side, the 2 mugs steaming between us. The air smelled of wet pavement and jasmine. "My mom left," I said finally. "Took my brother with her. Said some things. She's always been direct. That's one word." She smiled faintly, but it didn't last. "I saw her face when she looked at you that day. It reminded me of my own mother. When I told her I was getting divorced. I glanced over. Did she take it well? She said I was throwing my life away. She paused. Sometimes I think she was right. She traced the rim of her mug with her thumb, once, twice. The gesture felt so intimate I had to look away. For a while, we said nothing. Just sat there listening to the faint hiss of passing cars. I wanted to say something like "You didn't throw anything away," but it felt too big for that small, quiet night. Instead, I said, "You ever wish you could just start over?" She tilted her head. "Every morning," she said softly. "But then I make coffee and remind myself it's too late." I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. She handed me a napkin then, though I hadn't asked for one. Her fingers brushed mine again, not accidentally this time. "Get some rest," she said, standing. "You look tired." I almost told her I couldn't sleep anyway. That her voice, even when calm, felt like something I shouldn't need as much as I did. Instead, I just nodded. She turned to leave, and for a second, her hand rested on my shoulder, brief, steady, almost careful. Then she was gone, her car pulling away slow enough for me to see the shape of her face in the rearview mirror. The week after that night, she stopped coming on Thursdays. No text, no reason, just absence. The kind that hums louder than any noise. By Friday, I'd stopped pretending I wasn't looking for her. Every time the door opened, I looked up too quickly, only to find no one. I tried to act normal, wiping down tables that didn't need cleaning, talking too fast to customers who didn't care. Then, on Sunday morning, she walked in. No papers, no tote bag, just her, in a light gray coat and hair still damp from the shower. "Didn't think you worked Sundays," she said. "I switched shifts," I lied. We both knew it. She smiled anyway, small, polite, like we were strangers again. She ordered tea this time. "Something softer," she said. When I set it down, she glanced at me. "You look like you haven't slept." "I could say the same," I said. Her eyes flickered, something in them pulling tight, like she wanted to say more. But then the door opened again. It was my friend Kai, the one who covers shifts for me sometimes. He saw her and froze. Then he looked at me. "Hey," he said slowly, dragging the word. "Didn't know you and Ms. Kondo hang out outside of your mom's place." I felt the heat climb up my neck. "We don't," I said too quickly. "She just comes here sometimes." Kai grinned, not meanly, but with that knowing spark only 20-somethings have. "Right, just comes here, got it." He winked, grabbed his drink, and left. The silence that followed felt heavy, like we'd both heard something we weren't supposed to. "I should probably go," she said quietly, stirring her tea though she hadn't added anything to it. "You don't have to." She looked up then, really looked. "You're young, Toma. You should be having coffee with someone who doesn't remember your baby pictures." The words stung, but she said them so gently it felt like kindness. I didn't answer, just watched the way her hands stayed perfectly still on the table, except for her thumb tapping once, twice. "I don't see you like that," I said, before I could stop myself. "Like what?" "Like someone who's supposed to stay in the past." That made her look away. Outside, the sunlight caught the window glass, scattering across her face. For a moment, she seemed younger. Or maybe I was just seeing her differently. She reached for her coat. Her hand brushed mine again. The same accidental, not accidental touch that had started all this. Neither of us pulled back. Her breath caught so faint I almost imagined it. My heart was beating too fast. Then she stood, her voice low. "Don't make this harder than it already is." I wanted to ask what this was. What we were almost saying but never did. But she was already at the door, sunlight spilling in around her, her hand hovering on the handle like she might turn back. She didn't. The tea sat there cooling, untouched. It rained that evening. One of those steady, narrow rains that make everything smell clean and far away. The cafe closed early, power flickering once before the lights gave out completely. I locked up by flashlight, the street outside glistening under street lamps. She was there, waiting under the awning, umbrella half open, hair damp at the ends. "You walk home this way, right?" she asked. I nodded. We fell into step, her umbrella tilting slightly toward me. The rain whispered on the fabric, close enough that I could hear her breathe. Neither of us said anything for a while. The sound of our shoes through puddles filled the space between us. When we reached the park, she stopped near the benches. The ones we used to pass when she'd walk her dog years ago. The one that died last winter. I remembered because she'd told my mom, and I'd overheard. Do you ever wonder, she said quietly, why some people make it harder to breathe when they're not even trying to? I looked at her, not sure if she was asking me or herself. She gave a small laugh. I shouldn't say things like that. You can, I said. No, I can't. She sat, umbrella resting against her knees. Rain dotted her coat. I sat beside her. Too close, probably. I saw your mother again, she said. At the grocery store. She said you've been distant. She always says that when I don't do what she wants. She worries about you. I think she worries about control. I said before I could stop myself. And she hates that you talk to me. That made her look up. She mentioned that. I laughed softly. I bet she did. We sat there in the gray quiet, watching the rain soak through the gravel. My sleeve brushed hers. Neither of us moved away. She exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her breath for days. I don't know what we're doing, she said. I swallowed. We're sitting in the rain. That's not what I mean. I know. She turned then, eyes darker than the weather around us. You make me. She stopped, pressing her lips together. Forget myself. And I can't afford that. There was no anger in her voice, just something worn, like she'd already tried to stop feeling whatever this was. I wanted to tell her she wasn't the only one losing track, that I'd started timing my mornings by her footsteps, my nights by her absence. Instead, I said, you think this goes away if we stop talking? She looked at me. Really looked. Her eyes were tired, soft, searching. Does it? She whispered. I didn't have an answer. The rain thinned. The world felt very still. The kind of stillness that comes right before something irreversible. She reached for her umbrella, fingers trembling just slightly. Let's go, she said. But she didn't stand, and for a long moment, neither did I. The next Thursday came and went, no sign of her. By Friday, the silence had shape, a kind of weight pressing down on ordinary things. The doorbell at the cafe sounded louder, the coffee tasted duller. Even the regulars noticed. You okay, man? Kai asked, leaning on the counter. You look like someone unplugged you. I just tired. He nodded toward the window. That teacher friend of your mom's. She hasn't been around lately. I didn't answer. He meant it casually, but the name sat in the air between us like static. That night, I checked my phone 3 times before turning it off. There was no message from her. No new note, no folded receipt, nothing. The next morning, I saw her car, parked outside a small bookstore across town. I told myself I just happened to be walking that way. Through the window, I saw her. She was laughing with someone. A man about her age. He had his hand on the small of her back, steady, familiar. She touched his wrist when she laughed, like it was muscle memory. Something in me went still. Not anger, not sadness. Just stillness, like I'd missed a step I didn't know I was supposed to take. When she saw me through the glass, her smile faded, but only slightly. She said something to the man, picked up her bag, and came outside. Toma, she said, surprised, or maybe just pretending to be. What are you doing here? I needed a book, I said, glancing at the window. Didn't know this place was your kind of spot. It wasn't, she said, until recently. Her tone was polite, measured. The tone you use when you start putting distance back between people. Who was he? I asked before I could stop myself. She blinked, almost amused. An old friend. From before everything. Before everything. The way she said it made me realize I didn't know what everything really meant for her. I should go, she said, tightening her scarf. I have to drive to Osaka tonight. My daughter's visiting her father, her daughter. She'd never mentioned her before, not once. I nodded, trying to look neutral, like it didn't sting that she had another life, one that existed without me in it. When she got into her car, she rolled down the window slightly. Don't wait around the cafe for me next week, she said softly. I might not be back for a while. And then she was gone. That night, I sat on my couch with my phone in my hand. The message was half typed. I saw you today. You looked happy. I didn't send it. I just stared at it until the screen dimmed. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. The cursor blinked. Waiting, I let it. She came back on a Tuesday, no warning, no message. Just the sound of the cafe doorbell, soft and ordinary, like nothing had happened. It was closing time. Rain again, softer this time, almost polite. I looked up from wiping the counter and froze. She looked different. Lighter somehow. Or maybe just tired in a way that made her seem calm. "Tea?" I asked, voice smaller than I meant it to be. "Please," she said. I made it without speaking, hands steady even though everything else wasn't. When I set it down, she smiled faintly. "Still too hot to drink," she said. "Some things don't change." I wanted to ask why she was here, but she beat me to it. "I shouldn't have left like that," she said. "You didn't do anything wrong." I leaned against the counter. "Didn't I?" Her eyes lifted. "You just reminded me of something I wasn't ready to feel again." "What's that?" She looked at her tea. "The part of myself that still wants to be seen." Something in my chest tightened. I wanted to tell her I understood. That I knew what it was like to live half present. Pretending the quiet didn't hurt. Instead, I said, "You could have told me." "I didn't know how," she said. "When you reach a certain age, you stop believing you're allowed to start new things. Especially with someone who still has everything in front of them." She said it softly, like she wasn't blaming me, just explaining her absence. I walked around the counter and sat across from her. The chair creaked. She smiled at that, small, almost amused. "My mom called again," I said. "Asked if I'd seen you." I told her no. "Why?" "I didn't want to share you," I said. Then quieter. "Not in the way she means." She blinked, and for a moment, I thought I'd gone too far. Then she reached across the table, slow, uncertain, and placed her hand over mine. Her skin was cool from the rain. I didn't move. Neither did she. "You shouldn't say things like that," she whispered. "I didn't plan to." "Then why did you?" I thought about that. About all the mornings I'd waited for her, all the things I hadn't said. About how silence can become its own kind of confession. "Because you're the only person ever makes me want to tell the truth," I said. The words just sat there, quiet, heavy, real. She didn't pull her hand away. Instead, she looked at me. Really looked. Like she was memorizing something she knew she shouldn't. Her thumb brushed the edge of my wrist, barely there. "You don't know how much that means," she said. "Then tell me." She smiled, small and sad. "I think you already do." The clock behind the counter clicked softly. The rain had stopped. She stood, her hand still on mine for a moment longer than it should have been. Then, just before letting go, she said quietly, "Okay. It's been 8 months since that night. The cafe changed owners in June, so I work mornings now. 8:47 a.m. sharp, the same time she used to walk in. The new barista doesn't fold the sugar wrapper the way she did. Sometimes I still do, out of habit. 3 neat creases, pressed flat. She comes in on Fridays now. Never says she's coming, she just does. Always sits by the window, black coffee, 1 sugar packet she never opens. Sometimes she brings papers to grade, sometimes just a book. We don't talk much while I'm working, but she always waits until my shift ends. Then we walk, the same park, the same bench, even when it rains. We don't sit close, not like before. But close enough. Last week she told me she'd started teaching again full time. Said it felt good to have a reason to wake up early. I told her I'd been saving to buy a small apartment near the station. She said, "You'll fill it with good things." I said, "Maybe not right away." She smiled, and that was enough. One evening, we passed the spot where we sat that night in the rain. The bench was damp again. She looked at it and said, "Funny how some moments don't feel like the past." I nodded. "Some don't want to be." She looked at me. That same steady gaze that used to unravel me. "We were different then." "Were we?" She laughed softly. "You were younger. So were you." "Not like that." We sat anyway. The rain was light, the air cool. I handed her a thermos. "Black coffee, no sugar." "You remembered," she said. "I always do." We didn't need more than that. The quiet between us wasn't heavy anymore. It just existed, like air, like something that had learned how to stay. She leaves town sometimes, visits her daughter, spends time by the sea. She always brings back something small, a shell, a note, a photo folded twice. I keep them in a drawer. She knows, but we don't mention it. Sometimes when she comes by the cafe, I catch her watching me, Not like before, when everything between us felt like a held breath, but softer. Familiar. It's not the same kind of love I thought it was. It's quieter. Grown into something steadier, less about wanting, more about understanding. I used to think love had to happen, now I think it just stays, if you let it. Tonight, when we part, she lingers at the door. Same time next week, she asks. Age 47, I say. She smiles. The bell over the door rings as she leaves, soft and familiar. The smell of her coffee lingers. I watch her walk away until she disappears into the rainlight, and for once I don't feel paused anymore. Just still, but at peace.